Tensura X Villainess by Rimu-chi. After the welcome ceremony. Yumalia's POV. The grand hall slowly emptied as students dispersed, buzzing with discussions about the events of the ceremony. I made my way outside, my thoughts swirling. My first day at this academy had already veered far from my expectations. I glanced around, letting out a sigh. The Tempest family, the name rolled in my mind. A noble family never mentioned in the game. And that boy, Rimuru Tempest, had declared himself a demon lord with a staggering level 100. That maid I spoke to earlier, could she be working for him? I mused. If so, it meant the Tempest family held enough influence to employ someone of her skill level. I clenched my fists lightly, deep in thought. How did Rimuru achieve level 100? Is it even possible for me to reach that level? Just as I was lost in thought, a voice called out from behind me. Are you leaving already? Startled, I turned to see Rimuru standing there, a faint smile on his face. Oh, it's you, I said, my voice calm as I tried to regain my composure. Yes, I'm leaving. There's no one worth talking to right now. I see, Rimuru-san replied, his tone light. Mind if I talk to you for a bit? Just to be friends, if you're okay with that. Friends, I repeated, blinking. He nodded. Yeah, friends. I'm new to a lot of things here too, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to start somewhere. I hesitated for a moment before responding. My name is Yumalia Dolkness. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Yuma-chan, he said with a grin. I froze. Why Yuma-chan? My mind panicked, though I kept my expression neutral. My cheeks warmed slightly. He just gave me a nickname out of nowhere. I began, trying to steady myself. You just gave me a nickname. Rimuru-san shrugged nonchalantly. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. It makes talking easier. Well, that's fine, I replied, brushing it off. I wanted to ask him about his level, but before I could, a sharp voice interrupted us. Rimuru's POV. Well, that's fine, Yuma-chan said. She seemed about to ask me something when we were abruptly interrupted by someone shouting at us. You too. Stay where you are. I sighed and looked at Yuma-chan, who appeared equally annoyed. We turned toward the source of the voice to see Edwin, William, and Oswald approaching. Are these guys a group or something? I muttered. You could say that, Yuma-chan replied, sighing. William was the first to speak, his tone accusatory. Who do you think you are, embarrassing us in front of everyone like that? What are you talking about? I asked, raising an eyebrow. You act all high and mighty, Oswald sneered. Do you really think we believe that you two are level 99 and level 100? That's impossible. Both Yuma-chan and I sighed at the same time. It's not my problem whether you believe it or not, Yuma-chan said coolly. But I don't know about Rimuru. Same here, I added. Whether you believe it or not, it's the truth. The fact that you can't accept it is your problem, not mine. Prince Edwin glared at me, his expression dark. Don't you dare mock us. We're not mocking anyone, Yumalia said, her tone sharp. I couldn't help but chuckle. You guys don't have anything to prove us wrong anyway, I said with a smirk. William stepped forward, clearly ready to start a fight, but Edwin held him back. Don't waste your time on them, Edwin said coldly. It's not worth it. I folded my arms, keeping my tone casual. If any of you want to put me in my place, feel free to try. After all, we're all studying here together. Yuma-chan added, we have classes. You can challenge us there, or whatever. Oswald looked like he was about to retort, but Yuma-chan cut him off. Why don't you let us be and go talk to her? She said, gesturing toward a girl sitting nearby, Alicia, who was chatting with 3 other girls. The 3 boys turned to look at Alicia, clearly considering Yuma-chan's suggestion. She has more power than you two anyway, Oswald said smugly before walking away. Edwin and William followed him, though Edwin glanced back at me with a dark expression. Enjoy your time here while it lasts, he said before they headed toward Alicia. I sighed heavily. Honestly, I don't like those 3 idiots. I can relate to that, Yumalia said, shaking her head. So, I began, turning to her. Can we talk for a bit? I want to ask you about how things work around here. She nodded. Sure. We walked together toward the academy's garden, finding a quiet bench to sit on. The tension of the encounter faded as we began to talk, the afternoon sunlight casting a warm glow over the peaceful surroundings. So, can I ask a little bit about you first? I inquired, leaning back against the bench. Yume-chan nodded. If you share something about yourself afterward, she replied. Deal, I said with a smile. She started introducing herself, her tone neutral but precise. You already know, Rimu-san, Yume-chan began, and I nodded, letting her continue. I'm 17 years old, like you, I guess, she said. I'm from the Dolkness noble family. That's pretty much it about me. Ah, I see. That's short and simple. I tapped my chin dramatically. Alright, let's seal the deal then. Clearing my throat in mock seriousness, I introduced myself. I'm Rimuru Tempest. You can call me whatever you like. From the Tempest noble family. Blah blah blah. Everyone's dead, I'm the only one left, and now I carry the title of Dragon Prince. Nothing more, nothing less. I sighed after my overly theatrical introduction, and out of the corner of my eye, I caught Yume-chan smiling, just a little. It was faint, like she was trying to hide it, but I noticed. I decided not to mention it, for now. Then, she asked, is your hair really black, or? Yep, it's absolutely real, I said with a slight chuckle. You can check it if you want. She shook her head. No, it's just, you're the first person I've met with black hair like mine. Ah, I see, I replied. So, what's the deal with this black hair and demon lord thing? Well, Yume-chan began, people believe that anyone with black hair is either the demon lord or a descendant of the demon lord. Huh, interesting. But what if the hair color is just that, a color, and it has nothing to do with demon lords? I asked, curious to see her take on it. She shrugged lightly. It's not up to us. People believe what they want. We can't just change everything. True, I said with a nod, even though I could technically change that if I wanted. In my mind, Seal chimed in. Master, would you like to alter that belief? It would be simple. No, Seal, let it be. It makes things more entertaining this way, I replied. As you wish, Master, she said with an amused tone. Yume-chan stood up, brushing off her skirt. Well, I'll be heading to my room now. I'll see you tomorrow, Rimuru-san. I stood as well and smiled. Sure thing, Yume-chan. We shook hands briefly before she turned and walked away toward the dorms. After she left, I sighed and leaned back on the bench. Hey, Seal, how's Tempest doing? Everything going smoothly? Master, you need not worry. Your clone is performing exceptionally well, even better than you might. I pouted. Hey, don't praise my clone. Praise me, the real one. Master is incredibly adorable when jealous, Seal teased. I let out a long sigh. Well, at least this world is shaping up to be fun. With that thought, I got up and headed toward my room, already curious about what tomorrow would bring. Third person POV. The dormitory hall was alive with faint echoes of bustling activity, a mixture of excitement and tension filling the air as students and staff made their way to the welcome ceremony. Lysandra, maid to Lady Yumelia Dolkness, walked briskly through the corridors, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floors. Her mind was focused on ensuring her mistress had everything she needed for this crucial day. As she approached a corner, Lysandra turned swiftly but collided with someone coming from the opposite direction. The impact caused her to stumble slightly, and she let out a soft gasp as she caught herself against the wall. Oh my, I'm so sorry. The other maid exclaimed, her voice soft and apologetic. She immediately reached out to steady Lysandra, helping her regain her balance. Lysandra blinked and looked up, taking in the striking appearance of the maid before her. She had golden eyes that gleamed like sunlight and a cascade of blue hair tied neatly into a bun. Her elegant demeanor and flawless uniform spoke of someone who served a prestigious household. It's all right, truly, Lysandra replied with a polite nod. It was my fault for not paying attention. She straightened her uniform and then asked curiously, may I know your name? The blue-haired maid smiled warmly, inclining her head slightly. I am Serafina, personal maid to Lord Rimuru Tempest. And you are? Lysandra's brow furrowed slightly at the unfamiliar name, but she responded courteously. I am Lysandra, maid to Lady Yumelia Dolkness. It's a pleasure to meet you. The pleasure is all mine, Serafina said, her tone friendly. After a moment, Lysandra hesitated before asking, if I may, where are you headed? Serafina's smile didn't waver as she replied, to the Grand Hall. I need to make sure my master is prepared for the welcome ceremony. Lyssandra's eyes softened, and she nodded. I'm heading there for the same reason, to ensure Lady Eumelia has everything she needs. Serafina's smile grew. In that case, why don't we walk together? That sounds like a good idea, Lysandra agreed, and the two maids began making their way down the grand corridors together. As they entered the grand hall, the faint sound of applause and speeches reached their ears, signaling that the ceremony was already in progress. Serafina glanced toward the main area and sighed lightly. It seems we're late, she remarked. Yes, unfortunately, Lysandra replied. She scanned the hall briefly before pointing to an upstairs balcony that offered a clear view of the proceedings. We can stay up there. It'll give us a good vantage point to see everything. Agreed, Serafina said, and the two maids climbed the staircase, finding a discreet spot to stand and observe. From their elevated position, they watched the crowd below as nobles, students, and faculty mingled. The ceremony was grand and formal, but their focus wasn't on the event itself. They waited patiently for their masters to appear. After about 30 minutes, their patience was rewarded. Serafina nudged Lysandra lightly and gestured toward the gardens just outside the hall. There, she whispered. Lysandra followed her gaze and spotted Eumelia and Rimuru walking side by side toward a secluded bench. They appeared to be engrossed in conversation, their demeanor casual and at ease. Well, Lysandra murmured, a sly smile forming on her lips. It seems they're getting along quite well. Serafina narrowed her golden eyes slightly but couldn't hide the faint smile tugging at her lips. Indeed. I didn't expect them to strike up a conversation so quickly. Lysandra tilted her head thoughtfully. If they truly get along, this could mean great things for both families. Serafina glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. Are you suggesting? Lysandra chuckled softly. Think about it. The Dolkness family is influential, and the Tempest family, well, Lord Rimuru is the sole heir, and most powerful noble after king and queen. A union between the two could strengthen their positions immensely. Serafina crossed her arms, her expression contemplative. You're not wrong. Lord Rimuru, as the last member of the Tempest family, holds significant untapped potential. And Lady Eumelia, with her noble reputation and grace, could be a perfect match for him. Lysandra nodded. Exactly. And politically speaking, it would benefit both families. Power, wealth, and influence combined, it's an ideal arrangement. Serafina's smile faltered slightly as a faint pang of jealousy crept into her heart. Though she was happy to see Rimuru possibly finding a connection with someone, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of longing. Still, she pushed those feelings aside. If it makes Lord Rimuru happy, I'll support it. Lysandra noticed the flicker of emotion on Serafina's face and offered a reassuring smile. You care deeply for him, don't you? Serafina glanced away briefly, then met Lysandra's gaze with a soft smile. I do. But it's not my place to decide his happiness. If Lady Eumelia can bring him joy, I'll stand by him. Lysandra's respect for Serafina grew at that moment. You're a loyal maid, Serafina. Lord Rimuru is lucky to have you. And Lady Eumelia is fortunate to have you, Serafina replied, her voice warm. As they continued to watch, Eumelia and Rimuru stood from the bench. They exchanged a few words, shook hands, and began walking toward the dormitories, heading to their respective rooms. The two maids observed the interaction quietly, noting the casual yet respectful way the two nobles said their goodbyes. They seem comfortable with each other, Lysandra remarked. Serafina nodded, her golden eyes thoughtful. Yes, and that's a good sign. If this continues, who knows what might happen? Lysandra smiled slyly. Maybe a grand alliance between the Dolkness and Tempest families. Or in marriage. Who knows? Serafina chuckled softly. Perhaps. We'll just have to wait and see. As the two nobles disappeared into the dormitory halls, Serafina and Lysandra exchanged a glance, a sense of mutual understanding passing between them. For now, let's focus on our duties, Lysandra said. Agreed, Serafina replied, her golden eyes glimmering with quiet resolve. With that, the two maids turned and headed back to their quarters, each silently hoping for the best for their respective masters. Back to Rimuru's POV. After the day's chaos, I finally made my way to my room. The moment I stepped in, I was greeted by the hurried sound of footsteps. Master. Serafina's voice rang out, tinged with urgency. She practically ran toward me, her golden eyes wide with a mix of worry and excitement. I blinked in surprise. Serafina, calm down. I raised my hands, trying to steady her. She stopped in front of me, placing her hand over her chest to slow her breathing. I'm sorry, Master, she stammered, bowing slightly. Welcome back. Yeah, I'm back. But what's with the panic? I asked, narrowing my eyes slightly in concern. Serafina hesitated, biting her lower lip before speaking. It's about that lady, Yumilia. I saw you with her today. And, well, I met her briefly after you went to the welcome ceremony. She seems like a good girl, a good match for you, Master. I blinked, taken aback by her words. Is this about Yumilia? I scratched the back of my head. We're just friends, you know. Serafina tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes studying me intently. Just friends? She asked skeptically. Yeah, just friends, I confirmed with a nod. Although, did you know she's level 99? Serafina's gaze softened. I know, Master. I saw her stats. Not only me, but her maid Lysandra noticed it too. I sighed, waving a hand dismissively. Let's just ignore that, alright. To reassure her, I reached out and gently patted her head. Don't overthink things. Serafina closed her eyes at my touch, a small, content smile gracing her lips. As you wish, Master, she murmured. In the back of my mind, Ciel's voice chimed in. Master, it seems there are two more people who may require an explanation about who I am. Ciel, I'm not marrying anyone, I retorted internally. And if I ever do, you'll be the one explaining things, not me. We'll see about that, Master, Ciel replied teasingly. I let out an audible sigh, muttering under my breath, why does this always happen to me? The rest of the day passed uneventfully, and as the evening fell, I began to prepare for bed. I was in the middle of changing my shirt when the door to my room creaked open. I froze, turning slowly toward the sound. Serafina, I called out, watching as she stepped inside. But this wasn't the usual Serafina I was accustomed to. Instead of her maid uniform, she wore an elegant set of silk pajamas, the fabric clinging to her graceful form in a way that left little to the imagination. Her sapphire blue hair cascaded over her shoulders, and the soft glow of the room's lighting seemed to enhance her golden eyes. Serafina, I began cautiously, is there a reason you're dressed like that? You do realize it's just the two of us here, right? She nodded, her expression calm yet somehow alluring. I am well aware, Master, she replied, her voice lower than usual, carrying a warmth that sent a shiver down my spine. I took a step back, but she closed the distance between us effortlessly, her every movement fluid and deliberate. Let me help you, Master, she murmured, her voice like honey. Two can manage just fine, I stammered, holding up my hands. Please, she insisted, gently brushing past my hands. It's my duty to care for you. Before I could protest further, her hands were at my collar, carefully unbuttoning the rest of my shirt. Her fingers were soft yet deliberate, and I found myself too stunned to move. Serafina, I tried again, but she silenced me with a look. Relax, Master, she said softly, her tone soothing yet impossibly captivating. She slid my shirt off my shoulders, folding it neatly before setting it aside. Then, without missing a beat, she knelt briefly to adjust the hem of my pants. Serafina, seriously, I can. Shish, she interrupted, glancing up at me with a small smile. Just let me take care of you, Master. Her hands brushed against my skin lightly as she worked, and I could feel the heat rising to my face. By the time she stood back up, I was certain my face was as red as a tomato. There, she said, her voice laced with satisfaction. All done. Two can handle the rest myself. I blurted, stepping back toward the bed. Serafina chuckled softly, the sound sending another wave of warmth through me. Of course, Master, she replied, bowing slightly. I quickly climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin in an attempt to compose myself. The room was quiet for a moment, and I closed my eyes, willing myself to fall asleep. But then, I felt the mattress shift. My eyes snapped open, and to my utter disbelief, Serafina was lying beside me. Serafina, I exclaimed, sitting up. What are you doing? She propped herself up on one elbow, her golden eyes locking onto mine. Staying close to you, master, she whispered, her tone impossibly soft and intimate. This is highly inappropriate. Before I could finish, she leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. Let me take care of you just little more, she murmured, her lips brushing lightly against my cheek. Serafina, my voice faltered as she gently placed a hand on my chest, pushing me back onto the bed. Her golden eyes softened as she leaned in closer, her lips just inches from mine. Today is an hard day, master, she whispered, her voice like a melody. You deserve to be cared for. Before I could respond, her lips met mine in a soft, lingering kiss. It was gentle yet filled with emotion, and I found myself unable to resist. My heart raced in my chest, and my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. When she finally pulled away, her gaze met mine again. Rest well, master, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I tried to speak, but exhaustion suddenly overtook me. My eyes grew heavy, and despite my best efforts, I felt myself drifting off to sleep. As I faded into unconsciousness, one last thought echoed in my mind. Why does my life keep getting more complicated? Humilia's Pav. I woke up with a start, the morning sunlight filtering through my window. Yesterday was something I thought would never happen. My maid, Lysandra, was teasing me non-stop last night, insisting I'd already found a man. What does she even mean by that? I shook my head, trying to banish her teasing voice from my thoughts. Today is important, our first day of studies at the academy. I sat up, stretching my arms as I ran through everything in my mind. Everyone keeps whispering that I'm level 99, and for some reason, that makes me a target. Some students clearly hate me. On the other hand, there's Rimuru, the only one stronger than me, at level 100. He's hated just as much as I am, probably more. I frowned. Even thinking about Rimuru brought back a mix of emotions. He didn't seem to care about the scorn others threw at him, and yet, his calm demeanor made me curious. But no, my goal is clear. I must avoid the heroine, the main love interests, and every single event that leads to a bad ending for me. Yosh. I clenched my fists with determination. First things first. Let's get ready. After hopping out of bed, I headed to the bathroom, letting the warm water wash away my nervous energy. Once I was done, I stepped out, feeling refreshed. My gaze fell on the academy uniform hanging nearby. Sigh. My lady, is everything all right? Lysandra's voice rang out as she entered the room. Yes, I'm fine, I replied, rubbing the back of my neck. I was just remembering how complicated this academy outfit is. Lysandra gave a soft laugh. Let me help you then. You have to stay beautiful, especially if you meet him today. I shot her a suspicious glance. Teasing me again. Who's this? Him, you keep mentioning. She smirked, her green eyes twinkling with mischief, but said nothing more as she helped me into the uniform. Once I was dressed, I made my way to the classroom, my heart pounding slightly. The halls were already bustling with students heading to their first class. But as soon as I entered the room, all the chatter seemed to stop, and I could feel countless pairs of eyes on me. Whispers started almost immediately. That's her. The level 99 girl. She thinks she's better than everyone else. A male student sitting near the window scoffed loudly. Of course, she'd show up here. Just like that other one. Rimuru. I stiffened at the mention of his name. Another boy chimed in, his tone sharp. Both of them have black hair, you know. Just like the demon lords from the old stories. It's probably a bad omen to have them here. I tried to ignore their words, but each whisper felt like a needle pricking my skin. From behind me, a female student's voice cut through the murmurs, dripping with venom. Look at her, acting all high and mighty. And she was with Rimuru at the welcome ceremony, of all people. I glanced over my shoulder, finding a girl glaring daggers at me. Her eyes burned with jealousy. Rimuru is mine, she hissed under her breath, loud enough for me to hear. I clenched my fists but forced myself to keep walking. Don't interact. Don't react. As I took a seat, I overheard a group of male students in my own class whispering among themselves. During the practical class, we'll show her and Rimuru what's what, one of them said, his tone low and threatening. Yeah, it doesn't matter if she's level 99. We'll crush her. And Rimuru too, another sneered. He thinks he's untouchable, but he won't be for long. I kept my head down, pretending not to hear them. Across the room, I noticed a group of female students huddled together, their gazes darting between Rimuru's empty seat and me. They say Rimuru's level 100. He's so amazing, one of them whispered, her voice filled with admiration. But why was he with her? Another snapped, glaring in my direction. She's just in the way, a third muttered. I sighed inwardly. The day hadn't even officially started, and I already felt like I was walking through a minefield. As the chatter continued around me, one thought crossed my mind. Avoid the events. Avoid the heroine. And, for the love of everything, avoid Rimuru. If only it were that easy. Rimuru's pav. I woke up feeling well rested, the soft morning sunlight streaming through the window. Sitting up in bed, I rubbed my eyes, letting out a small yawn. It seemed like a peaceful start to the day until I felt a warm presence behind me. Two soft arms wrapped around me, pulling me into a gentle yet firm embrace. Good morning, Master, came Serafina's velvety voice, so close to my ear that it sent a shiver down my spine. Startled, I turned my head, only to freeze in place. She was completely bare. No clothes. None. My eyes widened in shock before I whipped my head away, my face heating up instantly. SS Serafina, I stammered, my voice rising in pitch. Put some clothes on. But instead of stepping away, she pressed herself even closer, her warm breath grazing my ear as she whispered, "Why, Master? Do I not look good enough for you to look at?" Her teasing tone made my already racing heart feel like it was about to burst out of my chest. What are you talking about? I managed to choke out, refusing to look in her direction. She chuckled softly, the sound both playful and mischievous. Besides, Master, she continued, her hands resting on my shoulders, you're not wearing much either. She leaned closer, her lips brushing dangerously close to my ear. Don't you remember our lovely night together? My mind blanked. What night? I stammered, turning even redder at the implication. Ignoring my protests, Serafina climbed onto the Mimor, her presence now towering over me as she leaned in with a playful smirk. Serafina, I nearly yelped, desperately trying to scoot away. What are you doing? Her golden eyes gleamed with amusement as she tilted her head. What's wrong, Master? Is something bothering you? Yes, everything, I exclaimed, struggling to keep my composure. Are you trying to seduce me or something? She smiled proudly, her voice carrying an air of confidence. Yes. Is it working? Before I could stop myself, the word slipped out. Yes. The room fell silent. My eyes widened in horror as the realization of what I'd just said hit me. Serafina's laughter was soft and sweet, but it carried a victorious edge. Good to hear that, Master, she said, leaning down to place a soft kiss on my forehead. Her rich blue hair brushed against my cheek as she whispered, I'll let you off for now. She slid off the bed gracefully, sauntering toward the corner of the room where her clothes were neatly folded. I took the chance to escape, practically sprinting to the bathroom. Shutting the door behind me, I leaned against it, letting out a deep breath. Seal, I called out desperately, trying to gather my thoughts. Tell me the truth. Did something happen between me and Serafina last night? Nothing at all, Master. She's simply enjoying herself. What does that even mean? Oh, it means exactly what it sounds like. Her voice carried a smug undertone, and I groaned. You're not helping, Seal. I disagree. I can see your smug face in my mind right now, I muttered, exasperated. Thank you, Master. I take that as a compliment. It wasn't one, I shot back, but she went silent, leaving me to deal with my embarrassment alone. Once I composed myself, I got dressed and stepped out of the bathroom, only to find Serafina waiting for me with my academy uniform draped neatly over her arms. As I approached, I noticed something strange. My uniform was entirely black. Unlike the standard academy outfits with red accents, mine was completely dark. Why is my uniform black? I asked, puzzled. Serafina stepped closer, holding the outfit up for me to inspect. Because it suits you perfectly, Master, she said with a soft smile, her tone filled with affection. I felt the heat rush to my face again. Okay, thanks, I mumbled, trying to dismiss the comment. Let me get ready quickly. I don't want to be late for class. But instead of handing me the uniform, Serafina stepped even closer, her golden eyes meeting mine. Allow me to help you, master, she offered, her voice sweet yet undeniably teasing. No, I can manage. Before I could finish, she began dressing me herself. Her hands moved delicately as she slid the black shirt over my head, her touch lingering just a little too long against my skin. Her golden eyes sparkled with mischief as she smoothed the fabric down, her fingers brushing over my chest. Serafina, I mumbled, feeling completely out of my element. Hold still, master, she whispered, leaning in closer. Her breath was warm against my neck as she adjusted the shirt's collar. Then she paused, her lips dangerously close to my ear. You smell so nice, master, she murmured, her voice low and sultry. I froze in place, unable to move as she leaned in even further, her lips grazing my skin. And then, without warning, she bit down gently on my neck. What are you doing? I yelped, pulling back slightly, but her hands held me firmly in place. Her golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she inspected her work. Just leaving my mark, master, she said, her tone filled with pride. So everyone knows you're mine. I couldn't even form words. My mind was spinning too fast to process what had just happened. There, she said cheerfully, stepping back to admire her work. You look perfect now. I didn't dare look at my reflection, afraid to see the mark she had left on my neck. Two need to go, I blurted, grabbing my bag and bolting for the door. Her soft laughter followed me as I fled down the hallway, my heart still racing. I tried to calm myself as I walked toward the classroom, though my thoughts kept drifting back to Serafina's antics earlier that morning. The phantom sensation of her touch lingered, and my face grew warm just thinking about it. Shaking my head, I forced myself to focus. The academy was bustling with students, and as I walked through the hallways, snippets of conversation caught my attention. Group of male students. Look at him, walking around like he owns the place. Yeah, who does he think he is? Black uniform, level 100. Must be some kind of demon lord. Him and that girl, Yumilia, both of them are nothing but trouble. I clenched my fists but kept my expression neutral. Great, here we go again. 3 female students. Did you see his eyes? They're terrifying. Yeah, I don't understand why he's even here. He doesn't belong. Stay away from him. He'll curse you just by looking at you. Their hushed voices carried a mix of fear and contempt. I exhaled slowly, resisting the urge to react. Another group of female students. As I passed, a group of girls stopped talking and stared at me. Their gazes were far from hostile, if anything, they seemed mesmerized. Is it just me, or does he look even more handsome today? One whispered. I can't stop thinking about him. His aura is so captivating, another added, her cheeks flushed. Wait. One of them trailed off, her eyes narrowing as she noticed the mark on my neck. Their expressions darkened. Who dared to leave a mark on him? Some trash woman clearly thinks she can claim him for herself, another hissed. I felt their anger radiating and quickened my pace. My patience was thinning, but I ignored them. Let them think whatever they want. As I approached the classroom, a small group of 4 girls intercepted me, their curious and dangerous gazes locked onto me. Rimuru-sama, one of them began sweetly, though her eyes gleamed with hidden intent. Can you tell us how you got that mark on your neck? I froze, my hand instinctively brushing against the faint bite mark Serafina had left. My face flushed as I quickly called out to Seal in my mind. Seal, help me out here. Simple, master. Tell them it was your maid. I sighed, exasperated. You make it sound so easy. Gathering myself, I glanced at the girls and said flatly, it was my maid, Serafina. She acts strangely sometimes. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Their expressions darkened, a storm brewing in their eyes. Oh, is that so? One of them muttered, her voice laced with venom. Interesting. Without waiting for me to elaborate, they exchanged a few whispered words and walked away, leaving me standing there, a mix of frustration and relief washing over me. Finally, I stepped into the classroom. The atmosphere was quieter, though I could still feel some lingering stares. I scanned the room and spotted Yumilia already seated. With a small smile, I made my way to her and sat down beside her. Good morning, Yumi-chan, I greeted warmly. She looked up from her notebook, her expression softening. Good morning to you, too. Just as she was about to say something, her eyes landed on the mark on my neck. Her face froze, and her eyes widened in shock. Rimuru, she asked hesitantly, who made that mark? I sighed heavily, leaning back in my seat. It's Serafina, my maid. I hesitated before adding, she's been acting weird lately. Yumilia blinked in surprise. Serafina, I met her yesterday. So she works for you. I nodded. But, she continued, her brows furrowing, she didn't seem like that kind of person. Leaving a bite mark on you. I wouldn't have expected that. I let out another sigh, rubbing the back of my neck. There's more to it. Even I don't know what's going on. Yumilia gave me a sympathetic look but didn't press further. Instead, she turned her attention to the book on her desk. I followed her lead, focusing on the material in front of me. The classroom gradually filled as the minutes passed, and soon the teacher arrived, signaling the start of the lesson. Despite the commotion earlier, I felt a small sense of peace sitting beside Yumilia. Let's just get through today, I thought to myself, determined to keep things as normal as possible, whatever normal even meant for me. Yumilia's pav. I couldn't stop myself from thinking about Serafina. She left a mark on Rimu-san. A literal mark. Like she was claiming him for herself. It was funny, in a way, but also kind of romantic. Not that I cared, of course. It's not like I had feelings for him or anything, we'd only just met. Still, I couldn't help but wonder how someone like her, who seemed so composed when I met her, ended up leaving something so bold on Rimuru-san. And Rimuru, he wasn't even trying to hide it. That mark was right there on his neck for everyone to see. Did he seriously not care about what people would think? Or, could it be that he seduced her? No, 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 no. I muttered under my breath, trying to shake the thought away. Rimuru-san doesn't seem like the type to do that. Right. But then again, I barely knew him. He could be full of surprises. Whatever. Not my problem. I had more pressing concerns, like figuring out how to survive this chaotic school. The teacher was late. We'd been sitting there for what felt like 12 or 13 minutes, and still, no sign of them. Looks like the teacher's going to be late, I said, glancing at Rimuru-san. He leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed casually. Looks like it. Wonder what's keeping them. I nodded, tapping my fingers on the desk to pass the time. Before I could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. I turned toward the door, expecting the teacher to finally show up. Instead, to my disappointment, Prince Edwin, Oswald, and William sauntered in with Alicia following closely behind them. Why is she with them this early in the story? I thought, frowning. Then it hit May was the one who told them to talk to her yesterday. Rimuru-san chuckled softly beside me. Looks like Alicia's got herself a reverse harem, he whispered, his voice filled with amusement. I sighed, shaking my head. Who cares? Let them have their little drama. Yeah, you're right, Rimuru said, though the mischievous glint in his eyes said otherwise. Still, it'd be fun to mess with them a bit. Guess I'll save that for later. I gave him a side glance, noticing how well his black uniform suited him. It was bold and striking, far more commanding than the standard academy attire. Not gonna lie, that outfit looks really good on you. Are you trying to make yourself look like a demon lord or something? Well, he shrugged casually, a small smirk playing on his lips. You could say that. If a real demon lord showed up and challenged me, I'd just erase them from existence. No big deal. I blinked, unsure if he was joking. You talk about demon lords like they're toys. Yeah, you could say that, he replied, his tone so nonchalant it bordered on arrogance. Before I could say anything else, Prince Edwin and his lackeys stomped over to our desk. Edwin slammed his hand down, making the entire classroom go silent. All eyes turned toward us. Great. Just great. What does he want now? What do you think you're doing? Edwin demanded, his tone sharp and condescending. Rimuru didn't even flinch. What? He asked, his voice calm but dripping with subtle mockery. Oswald sneered. Your uniform. It's not regulation. You can't just wear whatever you want. Oh. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, leaning forward slightly. Why not? It's the academy rule. Oswald snapped, clearly trying to sound authoritative. You're disrespecting the academy by showing up like this. And don't even get me started on your level claiming to be level 100. You're just flaunting arrogance. That's when Edwin's gaze fell on the mark on Rimuru's neck. His face twisted in disgust. And what's with that mark? You're a disgrace. How dare you show up looking like this? Rimuru cut him off with a bored sigh, waving his hand dismissively. Oh, this. It's from my maid, Serafina. She was acting a bit weird yesterday. Edwin opened his mouth to retort, but Rimuru silenced him with a sharp look. Listen, Rimuru began, his voice calm but laced with icy authority. Are you here to show off for Alicia? Because that's exactly what it looks like. The three of you strutting in here, making space for her to watch you's like you're putting on some kind of show. The trio stiffened, their faces turning red. And as for my level, Rimuru continued, his tone turning deadly serious, if you think I'm lying, feel free to test it. Just try to kill me. It's that simple. He leaned back in his chair, a smirk tugging at his lips. But until then, why don't you go sit down and keep your mouths shut? The teacher's coming. Edwin's face burned with humiliation, his fists clenching at his sides. But before he could respond, the professor entered the room. Oswald shot Rimuru a dark glare as he muttered under his breath, "You've messed with the wrong people." As the trio slinked off to their seats, I let out a heavy sigh, leaning closer to Rimuru. Did you really have to say all that to them? Rimuru grinned, completely unfazed. Absolutely. It's fun, don't you think? Besides, what can they do? Kill me? Not a chance. I shook my head, exasperated. You're going to make a lot of enemies here, you know. He chuckled, resting his chin on his hand. Enemies. Please. They're just background characters in my story. I rolled my eyes, unsure if I should laugh or scold him. Despite everything, there was something oddly reassuring about having him around. Rimuru-san might be reckless, but at least I wasn't facing this chaotic school alone. Rimuru's pav. That was fun. Teasing those three idiots was far more entertaining than I expected. Master, don't you think you were a bit extreme in teasing them? Nah, this was just warm-up level. Next time, we'll crank it up to normal, I replied casually, a smirk tugging at my lips. If this is your warm-up level, even I can imagine your version of extreme. That's the point, Seal, I muttered, leaning back in my seat. With the trio thoroughly humiliated, I turned my focus to the professor as he started his speech. The man at the front of the room adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Marcus, he began, his voice sharp and commanding. I will be your homeroom teacher for this term. Let me be clear, rules exist for a reason. Break them, and there will be consequences. I hope that's understood. Any questions? Edwin, ever the troublemaker, shot his hand up instantly. Yes, Prince Edwin, Professor Marcus acknowledged, his tone slightly more formal but without much warmth. Edwin didn't waste a second. Sir, that person, he pointed directly at me, his finger practically shaking with indignation, isn't wearing the correct academy uniform. He's already broken the rules. The professor turned his gaze toward me, his expression neutral at first. But then, recognition lit up his face. Ah, Lord Rimuru, he said smoothly, his tone completely shifting. I've heard much about you mainly from my female students. Well, I'm honored, I replied with a polite nod, barely concealing my amusement. The professor turned back to Edwin. As for his uniform, he said, folding his arms, it is absolutely permitted. That attire was specifically crafted for members of the Tempest family. It's a symbol of their unique status. Edwin's face flushed red, and without another word, he slumped back into his seat. Satisfied, Professor Marcus continued. Now, for your first class swordsmanship. You'll be heading to the outdoor training grounds, where Instructor Reinhardt will take over your session. Follow his instructions carefully. Dismissed. As the professor exited the room, students began filing out one by one, making their way toward the training grounds. I stood up, stretching lazily, and glanced at Yumilia. Shall we? I asked casually. Let's get it over with, she replied with a small smile, following my lead as we made our way outside. Master, you don't actually need swordsmanship training. You're already the best swordsman in existence. I know, Seal, I replied mentally, keeping my face impassive. But let's pretend I'm just another student for now. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. Sigh. As you wish, master. Suppressing a chuckle, I continued walking. It wasn't like I needed to learn anything, but watching how things unfolded was bound to be interesting. The training ground was buzzing with energy, and I was curious to see just how this, Instructor Reinhardt, would handle the session. After a short walk, we finally arrived at the training ground. It was a spacious, open area lined with weapon racks, and at the center stood a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern yet approachable expression. Judging by his confident stance and the aura of authority he radiated, this had to be the infamous Instructor Reinhardt. Yume-chan and I pushed through the crowd of students to get a closer look. Reinhardt's voice boomed across the field. Is everyone here? The students nodded collectively, murmuring affirmations. Good. Reinhardt scanned the group with a sharp gaze before continuing. I am your swordsmanship instructor Reinhardt. It's nice to meet you all. His voice carried both authority and warmth, setting a clear tone of discipline without unnecessary harshness. This will be your first swordsmanship training session here at the academy, he announced, stepping to a table behind him filled with wooden swords of various sizes. Reinhardt picked up one of the swords, holding it up for everyone to see. We'll be using these wooden swords for training today. Each of you will pick one for yourself. Once you've done that, we can begin. He motioned for us to approach the table, his expression urging us to hurry up but without outright saying so. The students shuffled forward, excitement and nerves evident on their faces. Yume-chan grabbed a wooden sword that matched her size, testing its weight with a determined look. I, on the other hand, grabbed the plainest looking one, not really caring about the weapon. It's not like I need this, I muttered under my breath, rolling the sword lazily in my hand. Master, is this necessary? You could crush this entire class with a single swing. I know, Seal, I replied mentally, suppressing a sigh. But this is part of the act. Besides, it's fun. Fun for you, maybe. It's inefficient, though. Well, it's not like I have anything better to do right now. Seal went silent, but I could practically feel her sighing in exasperation. Back to Rimuru's POV. After everyone paired up, Instructor Reinhardt addressed the class. All right, if you've chosen your partners, let's begin. Remember, experience isn't gained from just training but from real battles. Through combat, you'll understand the techniques better. The students nodded in agreement and began taking their positions. Naturally, the only ones left without partners were Yume-chan and me. It wasn't surprising. With Yume-chan at level 99 and me at level 100, who would dare to fight us? Master, Yumalia's level can technically be achieved with immense effort, but your level is entirely unattainable for anyone else. Yeah, I know, I replied casually. Sigh. What did I say wrong? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Nothing, master. Just forget it. Fine. I sighed and turned to Yumalia. Looks like it's just us two. She nodded. At least I'm not the only one who feels left out. I smiled. Yeah, that's true. Before we could begin, Reinhardt spoke again. All right, if everyone's ready, let's. Wait a minute. William's loud voice cut through the chatter. All heads turned as he stepped forward, flanked by a small group of similarly overconfident idiots. Reinhardt raised an eyebrow. Yes, William. Is there a problem? William smirked and gestured toward Yume-chan and me. Yeah, there's a problem. These two claim to be level 99 and level 100. I say we test if it's real or not. Not that it matters, it's obviously fake. Yume-chan sighed heavily, and I felt my patience start to waver. Are you serious? I asked, my voice flat. Do you really have a death wish? Hey, if you think you can take me, then bring it on. William sneered, puffing out his chest. Reinhardt turned to us, his expression serious. Lord Rimuru, Lady Yumalia, do you accept this challenge? Yume-chan opened her mouth to object, but I raised a hand to stop her. I'd be happy to, I said, stepping forward. Reinhardt nodded. Very well. Ready your weapons. The mock battle will begin on my signal. I raised my hand. Wait, just a moment, please. The students murmured in confusion, Yume-chan included. William scoffed, his voice dripping with mockery. What's wrong? Scared already? You'll lose before we even start. Some of the students laughed along with him, their smug faces making me roll my eyes. Reinhardt frowned. Is there a reason for delaying the match? Absolutely, I said, grinning. I can't fight him while he's using that flimsy wooden sword. Give him a real, sharp sword instead. In fact, I turned to the crowd of students who were laughing earlier. If any of you want to join him and fight me together, go ahead. I don't mind. The training ground went completely silent. The students froze, their smugness replaced by visible unease. Even Yumachan sighed beside me. Did you really have to say that? She asked, rubbing her temples. Of course, I replied cheerfully. It makes things more fun. Reinhardt folded his arms. Are you absolutely sure about this? I nodded. Like you said, instructor, experience is gained from real battles. William's face turned red with anger. You've got some nerve. Fine, let's see how you handle this. He tossed aside his wooden sword and stormed over to the weapon rack, picking up a real, sharp sword. 7 other students, spurred on by his bravado, followed his lead, grabbing swords of their own. The 8 of them stood in a line, fully armed and glaring daggers at me. Meanwhile, I lazily twirled the plain, battered wooden sword I had picked earlier. Are you guys ready yet? I asked, feigning boredom. I'm dying of impatience here. William's face twisted with rage. You little. The students who disliked me started cheering for William, calling for my defeat. Yumachan sighed again. Looks like I'll be waiting a while. I turned to her with an apologetic smile. Sorry about this. She nodded, stepping back to give a space. Facing William and his 7 lackeys, I tilted my head, still playing with my wooden sword. Master, are you planning to show off? Kind of, I admitted. But it's more about having fun. Of course, Master. Sigh. You just sighed, didn't you? No, Master. Don't lie, Seal. I can feel it. It's your imagination. Yeah, let's get this little game started. Reinhardt stepped forward, raising his hand. This match will be 8 against 1. On my signal, begin. Ready. William and his group glared at me, gripping their swords tightly. I yawned, deliberately making them angrier. Begin. Reinhardt shouted. The crowd erupted in cheers and shouts as the 8 charged at me, swords gleaming in the sunlight. Time to play, I murmured with a smirk, gripping my wooden sword tightly. The training grounds buzzed with energy as the crowd gathered. William and his 7 lackeys stood before me, their swords glinting in the sunlight, expressions full of confidence or perhaps misplaced arrogance. I yawned, spinning my old wooden sword lazily in one hand. The battered stick didn't look like much, but I didn't need more than this to deal with them. Honestly, even this was overkill. Yumachan, I called over my shoulder, glancing at Yumilia, who was sitting cross-legged on a bench at the sidelines. Do you think I'm being too nice letting them come at me like this? She sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Rimu-san, it wouldn't kill you to pretend to take this seriously for once. I chuckled. But where's the fun in that? Besides, they need the handicap. The first lackey, a boy who clearly thought brute strength was enough to win a fight, charged at me with a wild yell. His sword gleamed as he swung it straight for my throat, every ounce of his strength behind the strike. You're dead, Rimuru, he shouted, his voice full of confidence. I sidestepped effortlessly, letting the blade cut through nothing but air. As he stumbled past, I raised my wooden sword and gave him a light tap on the back of the head. He collapsed like a sack of potatoes, unconscious before he hit the ground. Wow, I said, feigning surprise. 1 down already. I expected more of a fight. Stop mocking us, you bastard. William bellowed, his face turning an angry shade of red. Surround him. Attack all at once. His lackeys obeyed, fanning out to encircle me. Their expressions betrayed a mix of determination and unease. From the sidelines, some of the students began cheering for William. Yeah, get him, William. Don't let him walk all over you. Show him what you're made of. The shouting was quickly drowned out by a group of girls who were far more enthusiastic about my performance. Lord Rimuru looks so cool out there. Do you see how calm he is? He hasn't even broken a sweat. William doesn't stand a chance. Rimuru-sama is invincible. The 7 lackeys struck in unison, their swords slicing through the air in a coordinated attack. For a brief moment, it might have seemed like I was in trouble, surrounded on all sides. Raising my free hand, I caught all 7 blades with my bare palm, halting their attacks as if they were toy swords. The force didn't even make me flinch. What the? One of the lackeys stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. How? How is he doing that? Another gasped, his hands trembling on his sword hilt. I glanced at Yumilia, who watched the scene with her usual composed expression. Yumichan, did you see that? They all swung at the same time. It's almost like they practiced this. She tilted her head thoughtfully. Rimu-san, don't you think you're being a little excessive? Excessive? I asked, feigning hurt as I pushed their swords back with a casual flick of my wrist. The lackeys stumbled, barely managing to stay on their feet. Yumichan, you wound me. I'm just playing along. Sure, she replied dryly, rolling her eyes. One of the students in the crowd, a boy who had been jeering at me earlier, now stared with wide eyes. He just blocked 7 swords, with one hand, and he doesn't even have a scratch. Another student, his face pale, shook his head in disbelief. That's not human. He's not human. Do you think we'd survive if we had to fight him? A girl whispered, her voice trembling. Survive? We wouldn't last 3 seconds, her friend replied, equally terrified. Meanwhile, the girls in my fan club were practically squealing with delight. He's amazing. Did you see how easily he stopped them? Lord Rimuru is so strong and so handsome. William should just give up already. He's embarrassing himself. William, now visibly frustrated, barked out orders. Don't just stand there. Keep attacking. His lackeys hesitated, clearly shaken, but the fear of William's wrath seemed to outweigh their common sense. They charged again, this time in pairs, hoping to overwhelm me with their coordinated strikes. I parried their swords with my wooden blade, moving so fast that their eyes couldn't keep up. Sparks flew with each clash, the sharp steel of their swords deflecting harmlessly off my old wooden stick. You know, I said, glancing at William, you guys really need better weapons. These things are barely holding up. What the hell are you talking about? William roared, charging at me with his sword raised high. I sighed and caught his blade with 2 fingers, stopping it dead in its tracks. The crowd gasped, the air thick with disbelief. Is that it? I asked, grinning as I held his sword effortlessly. Come on, William, you've got to try harder than that. Let go. He stammered, struggling to pull his sword free. Sure thing, I said, releasing his blade. As he stumbled back, I swung my wooden sword, shattering his weapon in one clean strike. The sound of the sword breaking echoed across the training grounds. William stood there, dumbfounded, holding the broken hilt. Turning to the remaining lackeys, I twirled my wooden sword casually. All right, who's next? They hesitated, glancing at each other nervously. Don't just stand there, William barked. Attack him. Reluctantly, they obeyed, charging at me once more. This time, I didn't even bother dodging. Raising my wooden sword, I swung it in a wide arc, shattering all 8 of their blades at once. The sound of metal breaking filled the air, and fragments of their swords scattered across the ground. The crowd fell silent, too stunned to speak. Oops, I said, smirking. Looks like I broke your toys. One of the students who had been cheering for William earlier now looked at me with terror. He broke all their swords, with a wooden stick. Another boy shook his head, his voice trembling. This isn't a fight, it's a massacre. We're so screwed if we ever have to face him, a girl muttered, clutching her head. Meanwhile, the girls in my fan club were louder than ever. Did you see that? He broke all their swords with one swing. Lord Rimuru is unstoppable. William never stood a chance. William, now weaponless and trembling with rage, clenched his fists. You think you're so tough? He shouted, his voice cracking. Fight me seriously, you bastard. Raising an eyebrow, I replied, seriously. William, I'm not even using 1% of my strength. You couldn't handle me if I sneezed in your direction. Shut up, he screamed, charging at me with his bare hands. I sidestepped his wild attack, sticking out my foot just enough to trip him. He fell face-first into the dirt, eliciting laughter from the crowd. Ouch, I said, shaking my head. That looked painful. Yumilia, who had been watching silently, finally spoke up. Rimuru-san, don't you think you've embarrassed him enough? I shrugged. Maybe, but he kind of brought this on himself. She sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. You're impossible. And you love it, I said with a grin. William struggled to his feet, his face red with humiliation. I'm not done yet, he shouted, clenching his fists. I raised my wooden sword. All right, William, let's finish this. You've wasted enough of my time. Before he could respond, I tapped him lightly on the chest with the tip of my sword. The impact sent him flying backward, where he landed in a heap, groaning. The remaining lackeys didn't even try to fight. They dropped their weapons and ran, leaving William lying on the ground, defeated and humiliated. Reinhardt, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. Well, that was certainly something. Lord Rimuru, you truly are on a different level. Shrugging, I tossed my wooden sword aside. I told them not to mess with me. It's not my fault they're idiots. The crowd was still silent, too stunned to speak except for the girls in my fan club, of course. Rimuru-sama is amazing. He's the strongest. William never stood a chance. I turned to Yumilia, smiling. Want to grab something to eat before the next class, Yumichan? I'm starving after all that hard work. She rolled her eyes but stood up, following me. Hard work. What hard work? The Shiseian said, Rimuru-san, you're unbelievable. And you wouldn't have me any other way, I said with a wink. She sighed again but smiled. Unfortunately, I think you're right.